All right.
So, hi
All
everyone.
right.
Thank you for joining today's session. This is a new time for us, but we did have a poll, and most people said this is the most appropriate time. Even though East African colleagues, it's a bit late, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, we're really, really happy and honored to have Dira with us once again. She has joined us on other occasions. If any of you remember, we had a session with her a while ago. But this one sounds really promising. How we can address Africa's challenges with project-based learning. So over to you, Adira.
Thank you so much, Sister Fatima. And again, I am truly honored. It's always a pleasure for me to be with the Black Belts of the 1 Million Teachers Program because I love and just applaud what the program is doing for us as educators across the continent and really across the globe. So congratulations to all of you for making it to the level of Black Belts. And it's so awesome that you have not stopped. You have continued again to show commitment to yourself, to your students, to your practice by being part of these sessions. So I encourage you to continue learning and developing as much as you can. So I'm going to go right ahead and get into our session today because I know we have just about an hour and there's quite a bit that I do want to cover, including maybe a little bit of brainstorming and interaction with the topic that we have at hand. So let me go ahead and start sharing screen. I do prefer in when I'm presenting that the questions are just held until the end, but I also know that sometimes, the questions pop up and so what you can do is drop them in the chat and then we can always scroll back and check and see what questions you had. But I will stop and pause at different points in the presentation to address questions. And by all means, your comments, you can feel free to leave those in the chat as well. For those who are just joining us, my name is Adirah Aishet Tsmaiel, and I'm the founder and executive director of Ujuzi Curriculum Consultants. And we are an educational support company. We do classes for students from really, I'd say the upper primary to high school. And then, and those classes are mostly online, but we do offer some in-person classes as well. And then we also offer educator workshops. So this is something that I love to do in terms of just sharing some of the things that I've learned through practice in teaching in various educational settings, homeschool settings, public charter school, university professor. And so through the years, I've picked up on certain things that I'd love to share with you all, and especially as it relates to developing the continent. And so let's get into our presentation. Oh, let's see. It looks like we have a few people in the waiting room. Okay. So this evening, what I would love for us to look at and explore is how we can address Africa's challenges through project-based learning. And it's a methodology that is practiced around the globe. And I really want us to look at how we can, again, as people of African ancestry, whether we're teaching here on the continent or teaching in the diaspora, how Mother Africa can benefit from this teaching methodology. And by show of hands, before I even get started, and you can also even drop it in the chat, how many of you are already familiar with project-based learning? Maybe some of you are already using it in your learning spaces. If that's the case, yeah, please drop that in the chat. And that's just out of my curiosity, because you definitely, we're all educators and all have a wealth of expertise. And so I may be calling on you to chime in during the presentation. So first of all, let's start looking at what is project-based learning. So project-based learning, and I love this definition, it is actually from the website projectbasedlearningworks.org, and I have the link there at the bottom. It's a teaching method in which students learn by actively engaging in real-world and personally meaningful projects. And I've highlighted the three components that I want to just elaborate on a little bit. So they're actively engaging. So instead of the students just copying down what the teacher has written on the board, and maybe that teacher has just gotten that information out of a text and is just writing, word for word on the board and then expecting the students to just copy word for word and just memorize it. Project-based learning offers students the opportunity to engage all their senses. So all of the learning styles can be, well engaged, and they're enjoying the lesson. The visual learners are getting to see different things. The auditory learners are getting to hear, discussions, between themselves and their classmates. The kinesthetic learners might be getting to build and construct different objects. And so through project-based learning, they're not just sitting and listening, but they're actually doing. And of course, we know as educators, the more involved we are with the learning, the more likely we are to retain it and then be able to apply the learning once we have left the learning space. And then let's look at that second component. So real world. Okay, so with project-based learning, the lessons are based on actual scenarios, real life situations, not hypothetical. Well, what if? Let's pretend. Let's use our imaginations. No, they're actually real situations that the students may have witnessed firsthand or something that they can definitely relate to. And then finally, the projects are personally meaningful. So it may be something that has impacted their family, maybe something that has impacted their community or their country, but it is something that has a deep meaning to them. So it's not something that's abstract, that's, or they heard about it in another country. It is something that is personally meaningful to them. And of course, again, the more our students are engaged and connected to the subject material, the greater the chances are that they are going to ingest and really absorb, and again, be able to apply that learning once the lesson has ended. So how do students benefit from project-based learning? Let's look at a few, and of course, there are way more that we could look at, but I want to highlight four ways. So, and I've mentioned this based on the definition that the students are more engaged in the lessons and they're able to make deeper connections with the material. And this is no matter what the subject is. So it can be history, it can be mathematics, it can be STEM, it can be geography. When they're engaged in these projects, they're just, again, fully able to absorb themselves, fully able to engage all of their senses and be able to take away more from the lesson. Then they're able to strengthen their 21st century education skills. Critical thinking. They might be working with a group, so they're learning how to collaborate, share their opinions. They're communicating, okay? And that might even involve disagreements, okay? But they're even learning how to, disagree, but still be agreeable, okay? Still maintain a certain level of rapport as they're working as a team. And of course, because a lot of times with project-based learning, which they should be, students are allowed to be as creative as they want to. And for us as educators, we know that Bloom's taxonomy, that comes to mind, in terms of being able to assess how students how can we say that students have learned something by looking, okay, can they understand? Can they explain? Can they repeat? Can they name? So there are all those different verbs that we use for Bloom's taxonomy. But the highest level, of course, we know is that they're able to create. So with project-based learning, they're getting plenty of opportunities to create new and innovative ideas and prototypes. And many of them can even be used in the community. Then number 3, our students are able to increase their confidence and gain new levels of self-efficacy. And self-efficacy, I know many of us are familiar with that as educators. It's the premise that when students have a high level of self-efficacy, they are confident that they will be successful. And as learners, if they don't have that high level of self-efficacy, this is where we see, they disengage. They maybe even stop attending school altogether because they don't feel that they're smart enough or they're capable enough. But through project-based learning, because it's not all centered around an exam and how well you can score or how high you can score, it's how creative you can be, how innovative you can be, how well you can present your project and your project ideas, and that we can see increases our students' confidence and, again, their self-efficacy. And the last benefit for students is, and this is a big one for me, because I believe that through education, we need to constantly be empowering our students, all right? Letting them see that if there are challenges in the world, they are not hopeless. They're not, they have the capability, the ability to do something about it. They can have a positive impact on the world. And so maybe it's a project that is solving a challenge that's in the school, in their community. But as a result of project-based learning, many students then feel, I have value. I can contribute something. There was a problem in my community and with my group. We developed a solution, and now we are the heroes of the school or the heroes of the community. And that makes a difference for our students. So they see themselves as change agents because of the things that they were able to create through a lesson, all right? Then how does project-based learning benefit Africa, all right? So that's what I want us to focus on this evening. And we might say, well, how can a teaching method, because that's what project-based learning is. It's just one type of teaching methodology. How can that transform the continent? And we might say, well, we're just teachers. But no, we're not just teachers. And I firmly believe that the transformation of Africa, the return of Africa's greatness, yes, technology has something to do with it. Yes, economics has something to do with it as well. But I believe if the education of our children is transformed and where they can really see the greatness of us as a people, I believe firmly that that is what will ultimately transform Mother Africa. And through project-based learning, we as educators have a wonderful opportunity to infuse culture, to infuse empowerment, to, again, help our children to see that they are the change that we have been waiting for. They are the saviors. We are the saviors, that we don't need to look for anyone else to come and fix our problems. As a community, as educators, we have the power within to do it, okay? So as educators, when we have our students who are engaged in their lessons, we now have engaged students, engaged citizens. When you think about them from a governmental standpoint, okay, they're citizens of the country. They are now developing a deeper loyalty to Africa because they are seeing themselves as people, as contributors to the solutions of Africa. And this, again, draws them in to see, well, okay, if I was able to solve this and come up with this creative solution for that, what else can I do? Then, as they finish their education and now they're joining the workforce, whether they're coming to join as entrepreneurs, so they've created their own company and they're hiring other people, or whether they're joining as employees, it doesn't matter. They are enlightened. They have a heads up. They are well aware of the challenges that face the community. Why? Because they have been doing these things as part of their education throughout their high school years, their primary school years. And so they're already familiar with some of the challenges, and they are now coming out ready with skills, confidence, that they can do something about those problems. Then another thing that project-based learning does So now you have these engaged students who have more of a love and loyalty for Africa. They're now ready to join the workforce in whatever capacity they are. And this will hopefully stop the African brain drain. There are too many of our bright minds leaving the continent to try to go to the West, to Europe, to Australia, wherever, because they don't see the opportunities that they know can exist for them here on the continent. And so we want to stop that. We want our bright minds to stay here and attract even more minds. So even more diaspora minds like myself who see that, okay, no, Africa needs the strengthening of our people. And so what can we do? What can we do to contribute to the brain gain to make sure that all of our brightest minds are staying here on the continent to develop what is here? And even if they do go, okay, so even if our students do, they get scholarships and they go abroad to study, if they go, it's with the mind that when I return, I'm going and I'm going to study, I'm going to gain some knowledge, I'm going to gain some resources, and then I'm going to come back home and contribute to the growth and development of my village, my county, my nation, my continent. And then as we see the bright minds, again, now staying and committing themselves to develop Mama Africa, they're coming up with inventions and innovations that first will benefit Africa and then ultimately the world. And this is something that we have to be more realistic about in terms of where our loyalties need to lie in terms of the challenges that we face. Because the reality is that there are so many other people of other ethnic groups who are coming, the Chinese, the Europeans, the East Indians, everyone is here in Africa. And they're seeing the benefit, they're seeing what's here, and they are coming here not for the benefit of Africa, but for the benefit of their people and getting the resources, whether it's land, whether it's our minerals, whether it's our natural vegetation. And so it's for us as educators, as citizens, as people of African ancestry, wherever we are, to make sure that our innovations and our inventions, our commitment is to developing Mama Africa through project-based learning and through whatever means we can, so that we are taking care of home first. As they say, love starts at home and then spreads abroad. So that is what we can do as educators to make sure that our children, our students, are learning and seeing firsthand how they can solve the problems and the challenges that we have here on the continent. And again, we'll see them being more likely to want to stay and to commit to building up of the continent. So what does that look like? Okay, and there's some things that we definitely want to consider. And there's so much to consider as far as project-based learning, way more than we can do in this 1 hour session. But we're going to, again, do what we can to incorporate and focus on some key points. So we want to look at the length of the project, because project-based learning can look very different according to the subject matter. And this is something that can be used not just in STEM, but in every subject. So in reading, in literacy, in social studies, history, in geography, in mathematics, in art, okay? Whatever the subject is that we are teaching our children, we can incorporate projects that allow them to address a challenge. That project can be for a whole term, okay, that they're working on. It can maybe be for 2 weeks, or maybe for a particular unit, or it can even be for one class session. They actually can accomplish designing and building something within a 1 hour or maybe 1.5 hour class session that will leave them feeling, okay, yes, we accomplished something. Another thing in terms of the length of the project, project-based learning can actually also be used as an assessment. Okay, so maybe there's certain skills, standards that you have in your curriculum that you have been putting in place and working with your students on. You can give them a project to now let them apply. Okay, this is what you've been taught. This is the theory. These are the concepts that you have been instructed on. Now let's see you apply all those skills through this project. So that is another way that project-based learning can be used. Then another thing that's also very good to do is to invite guest speakers, okay, professionals. So whatever it is that they're working on, they're able to see, okay, there is someone that actually works in this field, someone that looks like me, someone I can relate to. And that can also be a motivation for them too, to want to achieve and to pursue, certain professions, or even just to learn more about a particular topic because they met a guest speaker who visited their classroom, or maybe they visited with them virtually, and they're now more interested in a particular field that addresses a certain challenge. And then, of course, you also want to look at the resources that are available. And a lot of times we think that, different methodologies, teaching methodologies require lots of money and fancy equipment. But no, you can use some very basic household products. And I'll show you with some of the examples of some of the things that I've done with my students. And they were also going to watch a short video that highlights some of these points. It's from a grade 3 class in the US. And I want us to take a few minutes to watch it. And then I want us to share some of the reflections that we have from this video. So it's about 6 minutes long, but I want us to, again, key in on the project that the children are doing, the age of so for in the States for grade 3, the average age of the students might be 8 years old. Some might be as young as 7. Maybe you have some 9-year-olds also in the group. But pay close attention to the way that this teacher introduces this project and the things that the children are doing as part of this project, which definitely took them several weeks to accomplish. So here we go. Let's see if I can go right to it.
For this project, you are going to design a home. You're going to plan a home. You're going to build a home. This project, the tiny house project, is where students are designing tiny houses. Remember, when you're going to build this, we have to think about who's living in the house. There was a boom in tiny homes, just the idea of living in one, just because in the city, the population is growing and there's more people, less room. And maybe a tiny house is more cost efficient, more green. Would you like to have your own room? Yeah. Would you like to have your own space? Okay. The driving question was, how can we, as a design team, design a house for clients, taking into consideration budget and location and personal preferences? The entry event was Minecraft. So they used Minecraft to build just a house that they would build for their family.
This is inside the house. This is where, like, the sofa, and over here is where I sleep.
They're able to use their creativity. They're able to just be free and just to build without anybody giving them parameters. Back to our project and this driving question. What do we need to know to answer this question?
Like, say they have family that's gonna come live with them. They have to think about that. Like, have a guest room.
The Minecraft building sparked like, how many rooms do we build? And so they came up with their need to knows. Any other need to knows you'd like to add?
Have you imagine how much it costs?
Well, we have to know like how many kids there are or how big the family is. And are those questions that you think you should ask the client? And they're like, yeah. And so we come back to the driving question. We came back to the need to knows. And we came back to their entry event just so that they can get some questions that are appropriate for their project to their client.
What is the minimum square footage you want?
400 feet.
You want a second story?
Yes, second story would be good.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that'd be cool.
I think it's important for them to know that there's a real client because it gives the project more authenticity.
Would you like to have a garden outside your house?
Yes. When they form a relationship with the client, then they start to care about what the client thinks.
This is the final product. This is what the construction documents look like. But not too different from that concept drawing, right? We have the bedrooms up here, master bedroom in the corner.
So I asked an expert to come and present to the students, and he was actually a structural engineer.
You're gonna see elevations. Just kind of look at what kind of information is on there. How do you tell a wall is a wall? You can see you put two lines parallel to one another.
And we talked about making blueprints and what does that look like, or having a layout.
Oh, look, it even has toilets right here.
These are called elevations.
I think they were really excited about seeing the blueprints because it was just real things that they can hold, they can touch, and they can see, and they know that engineers touched it and engineers made this, and this is what we're going to do. All right, we're gonna move into our next rotation. On this side, we have front row and RAS kids for listening to reading and answering comprehension questions. So as we plan the project, we think about the standards that we're going to be using. In this project, we're using opinion writing or reading of informational text, and we integrate that into like a daily rotation of in English language arts. So this is an article from NASA, and it's called Tiny House Fun. If you have something you want to highlight, like you want to get back to, or a word that you really don't understand and you want to learn more about that, you can highlight some words. So on that day, I had a group and we were looking at informational reading. And then another group, they were listening to a book that had to do with houses. And then another group was working on vocabulary, and all the vocabulary is part of the project. And then another group was just doing their read to self, and that's just books that they're interested in, so they're practicing reading independently. Write your name at the top. For math rotations, we call it math with the teacher, math with technology, and math with the partner. The house size that your client wanted. And then I'm working with the group, and we're really looking at area and perimeter and the difference between area and perimeter. Okay, so can you tell me what the square units are here? Another activity that we did with math was the Cheez-Its math. When they looked at the square footage, we said that each Cheez-Its was 1 square inch, and they used that kind of information to do square footage within a house. It was just kind of a connection for them. To help them refine their designs of their homes, students went through a feedback protocol.
I turned the bathtub from here to here because I know that you can't get to the toilet. There's the bathroom with the shower.
They were paired up with another group and they presented their models, they presented their blueprints and their layout, and they talked about what was in the house and who their client was, just to get some feedback from their peers.
Our client is Miss Pena. Her age is 39. Her budget is $40,000.
Within the fishbowl protocol, what we did was, me and another teacher, we sat in front of a presenting group and everyone else looked around us, just like a fishbowl where they're not to talk, they're not to say anything, they're just really listening and seeing the interaction between the presenter and the guest.
I like how you do go into the living room, but maybe push the bedroom in the back. And then, so then that way she has more privacy. And so
the purpose of looking at that interaction between the audience and the presenter is so you can think about questions, you can think about behavior within the meeting. And so they can use that as a model for when they go back to their groups.
This is the laundry area. And then here's the pantry to store all of those. Right here we have a little office.
We practice different ways to present to their clients. We talk about eye contact, we talk about confidence, we talk about postures, we talk about volume of your voice.
Hello, my name is America. Hello, my name is Christopher. And the title of our project is Tiny Houses. Our driving question of this project is, given a budget, how can we as a design team plan a home for a family?
The last day of this journey is for them to really present their work to their clients. And they were so excited.
Did you have a hard time building the house?
Kind of, yeah. We had to redo some of the walls so that they were the exact measurement. There's the master bedroom. The middle is the kitchen. Here's a room.
They shared their blueprints, they shared their layout, they shared their budget, and they shared their opinion paragraphs that they wrote so that they can try to persuade their client to purchase their home.
All right. So many things, and I'm going to stop sharing actually for a moment. Good evening to those of you who are just joining. We are fully engaged in learning a little bit more about project-based learning. So I'd love to hear from you all. What are some of the things that you all took away? Okay, I'm seeing someone say, wow, this is amazing. And yes, so much in that little 7-minute video. And I'll drop the link in the chat so that you all can, watch it again and again. I mean, I can't stop watching it because it's so impactful. What are some things that you all are taking away from, again, just that little clip? And that's just a short example of how project-based learning can work in classrooms. If we want to unmute, we can raise hands and unmute. I'm going to take a few points. Definitely, you can drop your comments in the chat. One of the things I do want to emphasize is that these are, again, there's a grade 3 class. So anywhere from maybe 7 to 9 years of age, these students are predominantly Hispanic or Latino, students of Spanish descent, ancestry. They had their guest speaker, who was also someone who looked like them. So let me hear from some of y'all in terms of what you took away. Okay, so Ruth is saying in the chat, she noticed teamwork, collaboration, self-expression, and creativity. Yes. And I thought I saw a raised hand.
Yeah, I think Francine.
Okay,
Francine, unmute and speak.
Yes, please. Francine, are you there?
Let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
Ojoro Aziz. Aziz, you can speak.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that wonderful video. I believe that the project-based learning actually fostered 21st century skills such as critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. So are we permitted to ask questions now? We ask questions later.
Yes, so yes, you can. Yes, you can ask. We'll okay. Take a moment, and then I will take some more at the end. What's your question?
All right. The question I want to ask is that being a consultant and with your level of experience, when should a teacher prefer project-based learning over inquiry-based learning? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, so now there really there's really a connection there, and thank you so much for your question. So inquiry-based learning, of course, is definitely student-centered, driven by the students asking, okay, and sometimes it happens quote unquote by accident, where you may have a particular curriculum that you're working with, but the students' curiosity is taking them elsewhere, and as educators, sometimes yes, we just need to go with it and still work on imparting and helping our students to develop skills based on their own curiosities. And so with project-based learning, there is a driving question is what is at the center of the project, sort of like how a question is at the center of the scientific method, where that's where it's all starting. The students are asking why, what happens if I do this, or why did that not happen? And so with a project-based learning, they're looking at, based on some observations, based on a challenge that they may have. Maybe it's waste management in the school. Maybe they find that the children are littering too much. And the question is, well, how can we put our waste to use? How can we solve this challenge? What can we come up with? And then that leads them on the brainstorming, the collaboration, the sharing of ideas. So project-based learning definitely has some components of inquiry-based learning as well. And it is that question that is driving them to look at what they can do, what they can create to solve the challenges. I really believe that project-based learning can be started even from the preschool years, because our children aren't, I mean, if you leave them to themselves, the things that they will come up with, and we see it sometimes and consider it, quote unquote, bad behavior. It's not really bad behavior. They're just exploring. And so with guidance, because that's what this educator was doing in her classroom, and that's what we do with guidance, we can challenge them and help them to put those skills, those creativities to positive use, to again, develop products, to develop systems that can be used to, again, make the world a better place, starting at, you know, their schools, their homes, wherever, to make things better. So I hope that answered your question. I'm gonna show now some examples of how I have used project-based learning in some of my online classes. So let me get back to
Right.
my
I just wanted to add something, if I may,
yes,
Adirah.
yes.
That I've seen, like even like you said about preschoolers, children aged 3 to 4, 3 to 5, where they've been learning about the Three Little Pigs, and they're asked to design a house for the Three Little Pigs.
Okay.
And choosing suitable materials, and they did. I mean, not something as detailed as what the 8 to 9 year olds were doing, but the idea was very similar. And they were, you know, getting their sellotapes and cardboards and rulers and measuring and things like that. So I absolutely agree with you that there shouldn't be an age limit, that even preschool children can do project-based learning. Thank you.
Yes, yes. And I love that example, using, you know, stories that, you know, little nursery rhymes or, you know, common stories.
Yeah, yeah.
How can you solve a real, they needed a stronger house. And
yeah. Yeah.
how you can do that. So for some of my online students, one term we did astronomy as our focus. And I pulled down a project. So there's so many resources, and I do have a slide with some websites that have some great resources on project-based learning. So we took this lesson on how to design a moon lander. So a structure that would land on the moon, keep the astronaut safe. And this was from NASA's website, which is the state space administration, but my students are Kenyan. And so we're not dealing with NASA, we're dealing with the Kenya Space Agency. Okay, so making it relevant to them, but I'm still using the materials and the information and the lesson to, again, make it applicable to my students where they are. And so we use breakout rooms, and they broke into groups. They came up with designs. They talked about, you know, made suggestions to each other in terms of what might work. And these are some of the projects that they're showing and using. So they're showing their creativity. We use some very, very basic supplies: plastic cups, index cards, straws, balloons. And one thing I do encourage with my students is to look around your house. Now, these are primarily homeschool students. Look around your house and see what are things that you can recycle, reuse, again, to turn into something else and to contribute to your learning. Then they're also given the chance to communicate. All right, so this was a group of students, another group, and there are two sisters here. They used the software Tinkercad, and they designed a prototype. And so now they uploaded it and were sharing it with their teammate as to, you know, how they think their structure should work. So even digital communication counts as part of their presentations. And then this is one of their final products that they came up with and shared, you know, with their group. And then there was another lesson that I did on, this was for geology classes, and we were focusing on gold. Okay, now here, and this is the lesson that I actually created. So we started off with learning about vocabulary words. Every lesson always has some key words, key concepts. So again, even I know sometimes as educators, we might have the concern that they're not learning, you know, concepts. So, you know, if all they're doing is making things, but no, you can still incorporate, you know, and as we saw in that video, you know, there was writing, there was reading, there was math. So all of that can be incorporated at various points along, you know, however long the project lasts for. You can still have your exams and your assessments, you know, spelling tests or whatever it is, but know that at the end, the student's performance is not just centered on those exams. It's also looking at what did they create? Was their product or their prototype or their system effective in solving the challenge? And so we learned some vocabulary words that had to do with gold. We talked about gold as being an abundant resource here on the continent. And then the challenge was, the students were introduced to the fact that many Kenyan miners are risking their health because they're using mercury as part of the mining process to separate the gold from the other materials and how that is compromising their health. We also watched a short YouTube video so that they could see this is a real world problem, not something that what if they saw that, and actual people, and when we talk about personally meaningful, for some of these children, the video that we watched might have been from, a community where maybe their family is from, maybe if a village where their family comes from. So for them now, it's going to take on another level of, oh my gosh, what can I do to help make sure the people in my community or in my village, a country, that they're safe. And so we watched the video. They shared their reflections. Okay, this was the actual video, and I can put this link in the chat as well. But so as part of the projects, we, get information, whether it's through news reports, through doing research, so that the students can see that this is an actual real problem. All right, and then what we did, we went through the engineering design process. So their challenge was to design a product or a device that would allow the miners to be able to separate the gold from the other materials that they don't want. And so, as you can see, our materials, very basic products, beans, peas, rice, and flour. And of course, they're looking at things with the different sizes, and they were to get different things. These were the basic supplies that were asked, that they required. And then they could add on some other things if they wanted to. And so they also drew sketches. So, okay, you also include some art in there as well. And then if one design didn't work well, then they went through the design process, started again, did another redesign, and tested their second, their prototype. And the children, they came up with some very, very, unfortunately, I didn't get pictures of their finished projects for this one, but again, it was an opportunity for them to explore, be creative, collaborate, and then reflection. Okay, again, we talk about assessing. So having students work on things like journals or just reflect at the end of a project. What worked? What did you find challenging? What was easy for you? How is it working with, your team? So they get to think about and talk about all of that, because it's important. And many of us as adults, we sometimes we don't take the time that we should to reflect on things and learn what works, what didn't work. And so as part of these project-based learning activities, we can give our students a chance to reflect and see what went well, what would they improve the next time, what maybe they should use some different materials on their projects. So reflection is also a great way to assess our students and their learning. So this was part of an original presentation that I did at a conference a few weeks ago. And I left this slide in because I'm not going to talk about what the governments and the ministries and all of them should do. But for those of us who are school administrators or school leaders, I definitely want to encourage us to make sure that for project-based learning and just overall, really strong education to be existing in our schools, that we're making sure that our teachers have adequate supplies and professional development accessible to them, not just at the beginning of the year, but throughout the academic year. That's so important to make sure that we have what we need to be effective in the learning space. And then for us as educators to not take the laid back approach and say, well, my head teacher or my principal, they haven't provided it, so I don't have it. No, we can be proactive and we can be resourceful and seek out the activities, whether it's professional development, whether it's for raising funds for supplies for our students, to make sure that if we want to do project-based learning activities, we're not waiting for someone else to do it for us. We can seek ways and methods and resources to get those things done for ourselves. So ultimately our students will benefit. And that as we are learning these different things that we see can improve our children's educational experiences, that we're not just keeping them to ourselves, but that we're sharing them with our colleagues. So I really want to encourage each of you to do that this evening. Go back to your schools. I know some of us are on holidays until, maybe the 2nd or 3rd week of January, maybe even till February. Learn as much as you can and don't keep it to yourself. Share with a colleague. This is something I learned. I attended a workshop. I watched this. Let's see how we can, incorporate this into our lessons for the new term. Okay. And every classroom in your school is thriving, not just yours alone. All right. And then, so what I want to do, again, I know we don't have time for breakout sessions, but I have six scenarios here, 6 possible topics. And what I would love for us to do as a group, and I will say that I've started a project-based learning network of educators. And this is something that we actually had a workshop yesterday, and we broke into groups and started talking about some of these topics. Look at one and let's look at all of them and see if there's one that stands out to you. What is a project that you can create a lesson, an experience for your students to possibly come up with a solution? So whether it's crop management in times of drought, okay, when the rains are late, what happens to the farmers? How can they manage their crops and still have a good harvest? What is something that your students can come up with? What are some skills that you can incorporate into those lessons, whether it's learning about the different types of fruits and vegetables and other foods, measuring, garden space, what foods or plant life, is more drought resistant. So those are maybe some things that can be discussed. High number of fatalities at road accidents. What's something that our students can do? What's a project-based lesson that we can create so our students can possibly come up with solutions to minimize that? Poor national exam performance, that definitely is a challenge. It's a big deal for many schools. Can our students come up with ways to improve their national exam performance? What are some things that they can do? Maybe they can create a buddy system, create an app, something. Then recycling for managing waste. What's something that our children can come up with to effectively put the garbage or the things that can be reused to good use? The harm of albino people. That's a serious issue in some regions of the continent. Can our students come up with ways to, instead of being part of the problem that's, often makes fun of or belittles, these individuals, how can they be part of the solution to create positive and a safe environment for all of us of people of African ancestry? And the last one, solar energy is a great way to maximize cooking potential and cooking power. Can more families learn about cooking with the sun? Can our students learn about how to create solar cookers that can benefit the community? What are some of the lessons? STEM, recipes, nutrition. What are some of the things that can be incorporated into a lesson that's based around that? So I just want to put those out there. And if you have ideas, as we now take some questions, drop those in the chat. And if this is something that you want to, maybe look at expounding on further, let Sister Fatima know. You can reach out to me, and this is something that maybe we can expand upon, and maybe incorporate, if it's not there already, a project-based learning unit in the 1 Million Teachers program in the curriculum. So I'm going to leave those up.
There. Project-based learning is there. Okay,
great.
Should have done that unit. It's the brown belt, yeah.
Okay, all right, wonderful. So just something else to highlight. Maybe these are new ideas for projects. So let's take some questions and hear, and also your comments, your takeaways. What are some questions that we have as far as project-based learning? And again, if you have some ideas that are coming to you as far as these 6 topics, by all means, drop them in the chat.
All right. First, I'd like to say thank you for a wonderful presentation. It's awesome. It is something that we have learned as black belts, but this is seeing the practicalities of it. This is seeing the application and bringing it back and reminding ourselves of what a brilliant idea it is. And I really love the way it's cross-curricular, that it brings in different subjects and it has a theme. And like you said, all the 21st century skills of collaboration, communication, everything is being put into place. I think during the session, there was somebody, Falalu Ali Al Hassan, you put your hand up a while back while she was talking. Do you still have something to say? Falalu Ali Hassan, do you still have something to say? There was a raised hand during the session. I noted it down, but maybe he's not with us anymore. Okay, so I'm in the chat. I think Ojoro Aziz Olasheni, and he's got his hand up. He said he's asking about Ubuntu, and he's got his hand up as well. So Ojoro Aziz, you can unmute. Unmute and talk to us.
Yes.
All right. It's actually Ojoro, ma.
You keep correcting me, sorry. Ojoro. Ojoro. Okay. I'll get it right one day. Sorry.
All right. Thank you so much for the privilege. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. My question is this: if you are handling, like someone that works, for instance, I work in a public school, if you are handling very large classes, apart from grouping the students and giving them different topics to work on project-based, and what are the other action points that can help implement project-based learning in the school, apart from grouping students? Thank you.
Okay. All right. So if you have a large group of students, how can you manage them and still have effective project-based learning lessons? And that's, I think that's what I'm hearing your question is. So aside from grouping them, well, definitely the smaller the groups, or I should say so grouping them is definitely I would say the first step in terms of how to go. And I think also as you're grouping them, what may be help to with the management is giving them task leadership roles within those groups. Okay, so it's not just your group working together, but you actually assign students, okay, maybe you're the captain of the group, and give them roles that will make them accountable. Okay, not just to you as the teacher, but to themselves as students. And so just like on a site, a construction site, you have the foreman, you have, and there are folks that report to different people, give, again, one or two, maybe up to maybe 5 students different roles. And they can also rotate so that they know that, okay, this week I am, the person who's in charge of this. I'm in charge of making sure I get the supplies. And that helps. It gives students more of a buy-in in terms of I have a sense of responsibility. I'm contributing to the success of the class, of my group, and it helps to make your load as the teacher, just a little bit lighter, because you have, hopefully, and of course, sometimes, everyone is not going to be as responsible as the next student, but over time, you're building in your students that certain level of responsibility and engagement. So giving them specific duties within those groups, that should help. And then also perhaps rotating the experiences that they have. So looking at, like the example in the classroom, everybody was not necessarily doing the same thing at the same time, even though they were in groups. So looking at what can this particular group be working on? Is there a guest speaker that can come in? And I want to touch on that for a moment, because I know sometimes our time is limited. We feel our resources are limited. But there are people within the community, especially amongst our elders. And not every elder will, just go in and talk for a long time. But there are many people who are willing to contribute their skills and their expertise. It's, again, for us as educators to be proactive and look at them. Sometimes going into a business and say, you know, good afternoon, would you be willing to come and talk to my students for 20 minutes about XYZ? You will be surprised. And so we need to be, again, more resourceful and just think outside the box, even if it's someone that you can bring them in virtually. Some of the students in the group might be on, let's say if it's one tablet your class has, they're on that one tablet and they're maybe engaging with a guest speaker on a particular subject. So being creative with those groups, giving students responsibilities, I think that will also help with the managing. So I hope that that it's given some ideas. Any other questions?
I can't see anybody else with their hand up. Sorry.
Okay.
Somebody speaking.
Okay. Yes. One other thing I want to highlight, and I think this is so important. This is something that I actually had to unlearn as I got more seasoned seasoned as an educator. That a well-managed classroom is not necessarily a quiet classroom. Okay, many of us really think, oh, okay, in order for, you know, the classroom must be quiet in order for there to be learning happening. But I have found that actually the more engaged our students are, they are talking with each other, they're sharing ideas, they are engaging with the material. And so some noise in a classroom is actually a very good sign that learning is happening. Of course, it depends on the type of noise, but again, our students are not just to be sitting behind the desk as robots and just, you know, listening to take in everything that we are giving them as educators. We need to be allowing them to create and construct their own educational experiences, and through project-based learning, it is a wonderful way for them to do that, to see themselves again as
Okay, I don't know what's happened with Adirah. Maybe network connectivity. Oh, we've lost her. Oh, she's back.
yes. Oh my goodness. But now I think I have lost now,
I
oh,
can
okay.
see you, we can see you and hear you.
Okay.
We lost you for a short while, but you're back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I was hoping I didn't lose the chat. So yes, I'm back in it.
Yeah.
Okay, so they recycle them as house furniture, pen and pencil containers. All right, excellent. The money earned. Okay, yes. So entrepreneurship. This is a really big piece that can be incorporated into project-based learning. So wonderful, wonderful. Okay, thank you all so much for the kind comments. Okay, it builds critical and creative thinking skills while brainstorming. Yes. Yes. A well-managed classroom is not necessarily quiet. In fact, if the classroom is too quiet, I'm actually concerned about what's happening in in the classroom. Okay, which software did the students use to build the object? Okay, so it was Minecraft, which is a video game, and many educators are using it to build, you know, to incorporate building and learning about building in the classroom. So let me, yes, it was Minecraft. Let me share also, and the slides that are, let me jump back to my slides real quick, because I am going to, all right, here are just a few websites, and I will send Sister Fatima a copy of the slides. In fact, she already has a copy of the slides. So
yeah, you have emailed them to me. Yeah, I can share. I will share on the WhatsApp. Yeah.
Here are some links to some resources on project-based learning. NASA, the website has tons of project-based learnings that you can do in maybe 1 or 2 class sessions with very, very basic materials. And again, you don't worry about NASA, it's the Nigerian Space Agency or the Rwandese, you know, so make it applicable to our students here on the continent. And then lastly, you know, I'll just share my contact information. I'm on the 1 million teachers, you know, the WhatsApp group. Sister Fatima definitely also knows how to get in touch with me. But I want to congratulate you all again and celebrate you for taking the time out to continue to develop yourselves as educators, so that your students can benefit and ultimately our world will benefit. So thank you all so much for your attention, for your time, for your participation. And I look forward to being back again at some point to share time with you all. Any last 1 or 2 questions before we go? I know we're just about out of time.
You did really well for time, spot on.
Okay.
8:15. Yeah, the excellent timekeeping.
Yes, all right. Well, thank you again
Wow,
so much, everyone.
it's always such an honor to have you and such an opportunity. We always learn so much. I hope you'll join us again in the near future. It's been a
Anytime.
wonderful session. Yeah, thank you so much. So this
Thank you
is
so
being
much.
recorded. Anyone who joined late or missed the session, it's going to be on YouTube, and I'm going to share that with you. I'll also share the slides on the WhatsApp group. So once again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and take care, everyone. Blessings to you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Take care, everyone. Blessings.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.